Let's make something perfectly clear. I have no idea what's in this amendment. I'm just being honest with you.
I love that. Okay.
Which sexual orientations do you believe should be prohibited from Missouri classroom?
So I believe, this is my personal belief, that we all have a moral compass. And my moral compass is compared with the Bible.
Lady, I believe during your testimony, you said that you didn't want teachers' personal beliefs entering the classroom, but it seemed a lot like your personal belief. You would like to enter all Missouri classrooms.
Decorum is more than just rules. It is respect for each other, respect for the institution, and respect for this magnificent building. I have felt compelled to offer this amendment, which cleans up some of the language in Rule 98 by mirroring the previous language in the gentleman's dress code.
I don't want the doorman to be walking around while we're engaging in important debate, trying to figure out whether or not something is a blazer, or while someone is in the middle of talking, being able to speak on behalf of their district, someone thinks it's funny to go get a doorman or to point of order them in the middle of speaking because they may not understand the difference between a blazer, an Afghan, a jacket, or something else. This is not what the taxpayer is paying for us to do. I spent $1,200 on a suit and I can't wear it in the people's house because someone who doesn't have the range tells me that it's inappropriate.
There are a lot of ways we could break decorum in this room, but a woman, what she's wearing, that is ridiculous. I have personally been called into question offline about what I was wearing, even though I was following rules. But it was some gentleman in this room who decided that they wanted to question what I was wearing. You know what it feels like to have a bunch of men in this room looking at your top, trying to decide whether it's appropriate or not? Are we going to have Dana be checking our tags for whether it's a knit blend or a polyester blend or it's a silk count? I mean, this is ridiculous.
Lady, you're right. It is ridiculous. It is absolutely
So why are you doing it?
That we even have to talk about it on the House floor.
I agree. So why did you bring it up?
Why should we talk about something like this? It is absolutely ridiculous.
You brought this to the floor, lady. You tell me.
You would think that all you would have to do is say, dress professionally, and women could handle it. You would think elected officials could handle that.
You would think, but
no,
we're walking around here in sequins and velveteen, to the lady's point, so what is appropriate and why do you get to decide?
We need to get over the sequins. That's ridiculous. All right, so men are required to wear a jacket, a shirt, and a tie. Correct? And if they walked in here without a tie, they would get gavelled down in a heartbeat.
Should we be required to wear ties, lady?
If they walked in without a jacket,
because
they would get gavelled down in a heartbeat. So we are so interested in being equal.
So then why didn't you write a rule that we should wear ties too? If you want to be equal,
go for it.
Equal playing ground. Let's all wear men's suits in this room, lady.
Sexual orientation or gender identity is not part of the Missouri standards and does not have a place in the classroom. Exposure to such topics is inappropriate for children, creating confusion which may then cause doubt in their identities. It is not the place of the school to indoctrinate our children by exposing them to gender and sexual identity curriculums and courses.
It sounds like we've got some problems with definitions. I think everyone knows we've got problems with definitions. I want to go further into political beliefs in the classroom. I was a teacher, as I know you were as well.
Representative, did you ever inform your students on your beliefs?
On my beliefs?
Again,
did my students know I was gay? Yes. Yeah, no, they did. They did know I was gay. They would see my wedding ring and they would ask about it.
We have 14-year-olds walking down the middle of the street in the city of St. Louis carrying AR-15s.
I remind the body and the author of this amendment to the amendment these 4 words: shall not be infringed.
The people in my district should not be penalized and lose their rights because of something that's going on solely in her district.
And while it may be intuitive that the 14-year-old or whatnot has no legitimate purpose, doesn't actually mean they're going to harm anyone. We don't know that yet. Is it good policy to basically start with the assumption that simply having a physical item is automatically causing harm, regardless of how you're using it and regardless of your age?
It's important to us that we remember that there's a reason why we have these constitutional rights, and it's to protect the people from the government. And so, for all those reasons, I'm not going to be able to vote for this amendment, for the construction of it and the principle of it, and the core value I have of it.
This point of order, or this stripping of this amendment, goes back to how many times have we been stripped of our amendment down there, and that's the reason that I have stood. So I'll open it up for questions.
Hi, gentlemen. How are you?
I'm fine.
Good. Okay. Let's go over this. So from what I'm seeing on page 51, the part that it takes out, and stop me if I'm wrong, it's line 123 to line 127. Is that right? Is that the part that you're taking out?
Yeah, but let's make something perfectly clear. I have no idea what's in this amendment. I'm just being honest with you.
I love that. Okay.
But it's time that we do something on this end that affects that end instead of that end always winning. And so you're going to see me stand up between now and the end of session many a time.
You know what? I'm familiar with you doing that.
So anybody can acquire of me all they want. About what's in this, I couldn't care. Tell you the truth, I couldn't care less.
Burn it down. Okay.
Okay.
I'm with you. Thanks. Thanks, Mr. Speaker.
So I'm just going to read you the language in your bill. No classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties relating to sexual orientation or gender identity shall occur. Lady, you mentioned George Washington. Who is Martha Washington?
His wife.
Under your bill, how could you mention that in the classroom?
So to me, that's not sexual orientation.
Really? So it's only really certain sexual orientations that you want prohibited from introduction in the classroom?
You have to make that better, to make it where you're not talking.
Lady, I didn't introduce your bill.
Okay.
And I didn't write it. You wrote it, and so I'm asking what it means.
You can believe something without putting that onto somebody by the way you behave. And you can have beliefs and morals and values that guide you through life.
I don't dispute that, but I'm asking about the language of your bill and how it would permit the mention of the historical figure Martha Washington. Could you explain that to me?
So why is she famous? Is she famous because she's married to George Washington?
It seems like that would be a relevant fact in her biography, yes. Could it be mentioned under the plain when reading language of your bill? Is that a no?
I don't know, sir.
Okay.
Will you yield?
Oh, I'll yield. Yes, please.
Yeah, when I was in 11th grade and Joe Biden made our schools gun-free school zones, one of the students in my school brought 3 guns to school, and our entire school went on lockdown because he was the only person with a gun.
For the record, when Marjorie Taylor Greene was in 11th grade, George H.W. Bush was president, not Joe Biden. President Bush 41 signed into law the Gun-Free School Zones Act of 1990. It passed the Senate by a voice vote. The House passed the law by a vote of 313-1. Now, despite what Marjorie Taylor Greene might have you believe, Joe Biden has not been the president for 33 years. At the time the law was signed, Biden was a senator. Greene is also lying about the timeline of all of this. The incident at her school happened on September 6, 1990. The bill was not even introduced in the Senate until October 27, 1990. It was signed into law November 29, 1990, 3 months after the incident at Greene's school. Still, Greene has lied about all of this repeatedly. But never mind Congress, last year, Greene delivered the whopper on Fox News with the help of Tucker Carlson.
She was 16 years old. Marjorie Taylor Greene, a member of Congress from Georgia, was trapped in her high school when a student showed up with firearms to commit a mass shooting.
It was the worst thing that could have happened to any of us, and it was terrifying. There was no adult there with a gun in our school because our schools had turned into gun-free zones. This was because of Joe Biden and the crime bill that they passed back in 1990.
Greene has also lied about the sequence as a witness in congressional hearings.
I want to share something with you. In 1990, when I was in high school, and our schools became gun-free school zones, another student at my school brought guns to school, into our school, and our school went on lockdown.
Now, to be fair, that lockdown at Greene's school did happen, and perhaps Greene's high school declared itself as a gun-free zone before Congress took any legislative action. There were a few schools across the United States in the late 1980s that took action on their own and instituted a gun-free policy before Congress took up the issue. But remember, Greene attended high school in a very conservative part of rural Georgia where they loved their guns, and there was every indication the school did not become a gun-free zone until after Congress passed the law, and that was 3 months after the school lockdown and shooting threat that Greene mentions. Anyway, honesty and credibility have never been calling cards for Marjorie Taylor Greene, and on the gun issue in particular, it was not that long ago when Greene was running for Congress and claimed the mass shooting in Las Vegas that killed 60 people, the deadliest shooting in U.S. history, was perpetrated by the U.S. government.
I don't believe Stephen Paddock was a lone wolf. I don't believe that he pulled this off all by himself, and I know most of you don't either. So I am really wondering if there's a bigger motive there, and does it have to do with the Second Amendment? Because what's the best way to control the people? You have to take away their guns.
By the way, Democrats do not want to take away all guns. Democrats and a lot of Republicans want to take away assault weapons. That happened for 10 years starting in the Clinton administration. And during that decade when assault weapons were banned, mass shootings went down. Then the Bush 43 administration let the ban expire, and mass shootings have been rising ever since. Those are facts that are inconvenient for many gun nuts like Marjorie Taylor Greene. She can whine all she wants about soft targets and gun-free zones somehow being responsible for mass shootings, and perhaps blaming Joe Biden for something nearly all of Congress supported 33 years ago was good politics. After all, a lot of Greene supporters are not terribly bright. And remember, Marjorie Taylor Greene would not know the truth or be willing to tell it if it bit her on her derriere. Seriously. By the way, Greene's best frenemy in Congress, Lauren Boebert, the Colorado House Republican, recently got destroyed on the House floor by progressive Democrat Jamie Raskin.
Who decides what is true or false? I certainly don't trust the federal government to make that distinction.
We have an entire political party which is organizing itself around this radical moral agnosticism, claiming that there's no way we can know the difference between whether an election is on Tuesday or whether an election is on Thursday.
Okay, here we go, baby. Last question. If you have 6 bananas, George eats 3, King Kong has 2, how many bananas are left? Okay, you carry the 1, this is square root, monkey see, monkey do. 10 bananas. You have 10.
This was a jury of 9 people who found you liable of sexual abuse. Do you think that will deter women from voting for you?
No, I don't think so, because I think the whole thing, just so you understand, ready? I never met this woman. I never saw this woman. This woman said, I met her at the front door of Bergdorf Goodman, which I rarely go into other than for a couple of charities. I met her in the front door. She was about 60 years old, and this is like 22, 23 years ago. I met her in the front door of Bergdorf Goodman. I was immediately attracted to her. She was immediately attracted to me. And we had this great chemistry. We're walking into a crowded department store. We had this great chemistry, and a few minutes later, we end up in a room, a dressing room of Bergdorf Goodman, right near the cash register. And then she found out there were locks on the door, so she said, I found one that was open. She found one. She learned this at trial. She found one that was open. What kind of a woman meets somebody and brings them up, and within minutes, you're playing hanky-panky in a dressing room, okay?
in the quaintest corner of Middle-earth, embark on an epic journey unlike any you've experienced before. This winter, Wes Anderson presents a heartwarming and quirky adaptation of a beloved classic, The Whimsical Fellowship. Meet Frodo Baggins, an unassuming hobbit, chosen for an extraordinary task. Guided by the enigmatic wizard Gandalf, Frodo embarks on a captivating journey with a colorful crew. Follow these heroes as they traverse idyllic countrysides and enchanted forests, bound together by a mission to save their world from looming darkness.
Our quest is clear. We must destroy the One Ring, overcome the eccentricities of our newfound fellowship, and perhaps learn the true meaning of friendship along the way. For this adventure, we'll require a walking stick, antique maps, breakfast, the Ring of Power, a pipe, a sword, and second breakfast.
Featuring an illustrious cast of Middle-earth's most distinctive inhabitants, starring Timothée Chalamet, Bill Murray, Tilda Swinton, Edward Norton, Léa Seydoux, Benicio del Toro, Adrian Brody, Bob Balaban, Jeff Goldblum, Ben Stiller, Christoph Waltz, Willem Dafoe, and Owen Wilson. Wow. The Whimsical Fellowship is a refreshingly unique interpretation of Tolkien's timeless tale. Journey into theaters this summer, and remember, not all those who wander are lost. If you like this trailer, be sure to subscribe to our channel, and let us know what video you want to see next. Curious about how we made this? Check out our AI filmmaking training at CuriousRefuge.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.
Keep your channel locked to Fox News as we bring you all the latest from James Comer coming up in a few hours.
Fox and Friends starts right now. Have a good day.
A countdown clock. That's how excited Fox News was for the Republican House News Conference.
Republicans are calling it Judgment Day.
Hunter could face charges of tax evasion and illegal gun ownership.
The entire family has been putting millions and millions of dollars in their back pocket.
But on this Judgment Day, for the Republican investigators, it was a big swing and a whiff.
But are you going to be able to prove the central thesis that President Biden was directly involved with corruption?
So right now, you could say that we're in the beginning stages of this investigation, but we're going to continue to look.
We are going to continue to look. We are at the beginning stages. In other words, no, they don't have any proof of criminal wrongdoing. As Politico reported, Comer releases Biden family probe update without showing link to president. Instead, the oversight panel chair revealed that Biden family members, business associates, or related companies received more than $10 million from companies run by foreign nationals.
To President Biden, I don't think anyone in America who's watching C-SPAN or any other network that's covering this would think that it's just a coincidence that 9 Biden family members have received money. I mean, what as Representative Jordan and the other speakers said, what business is there?
The business is a consulting business that is old news. For years, Hunter Biden, the president's son, has acknowledged serving on the board of several foreign-owned companies, and board members get paid. Was Biden's father, the president, involved? No. And there's no evidence anybody has collected that shows otherwise. But the Republicans keep insisting the Bidens are corrupt. Why? Because they say so. As a result, the GOP cannot let this go. Even though there's no proof of wrongdoing, no evidence of illegal activity, no document showing actual influence peddling. Just a lot of bank records that the Republicans reviewed that showed Biden family members got fees from a few different foreign-owned companies for consultation and advice. Talk about innuendo. Now, there is a Justice Department investigation into Hunter Biden that could still lead to criminal charges. The Washington Post reported several months ago that Hunter Biden did not fill out a gun registration form and that he may not have paid proper taxes on some of his income. But there's never been a shred of evidence, even from the infamous Hunter Biden laptop, that he or any family members were involved in financial fraud or business corruption. If the Republicans wanted to investigate corruption involving a presidential family, they should examine the Trumps. There are multiple reports and financial documents showing the Trump organization made tens of millions of dollars from foreign governments and foreign companies while President Trump was in office. There is evidence already on the record that Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner was tasked by the Saudi crown prince with managing billions of dollars of Saudi money, and Kushner got a percentage of that. But did he give in return? Could it be related to the classified documents that President Trump took with him to Mar-a-Lago? Maybe some intelligence or information the Saudis or other foreign governments would find useful. The fact is, what the Republican House Committee is investigating with the Bidens is a drop in the bucket compared to the fire hose of financial questions swirling around the Trumps. But the Republicans only care about smearing the Bidens, and even on that count, they have failed to land a punch, and all the conservatives who counted down on Fox News got a big nothing burger. Because of course.
I know the Republicans said that the smoking gun were these financial records that you were able to subpoena and got your hands on. They'd show that some of the president's relatives were paid more than $10 million from foreign sources between 2015 and 2017. And your party, the Republican investigators, say that that's proof of influence peddling by Hunter and James. But that's just your suggestion. You don't actually have any facts to that point. You've got some circumstantial evidence. And the other thing is, of all those names, the one person who didn't profit is there's no evidence that Joe Biden did anything illegally.
Oh, that's gonna hurt! Fox better be careful here. I mean, if they start approaching falsities with any sense of logic, they might miss out on getting their yearly lawsuit.
And 5 years investigating. Nothing just yet.
At this point, Republican James Comer is jumping from host to host, getting dunked on for paying a whole lot of lip service to the little case that could. I mean, we all remember this travesty.
I'm not going to disclose that new name because that really changes things, because what we assumed was this was just about the president's son and 2 brothers. But now there's a new name that's emerged. So, and they are a Biden. So we've got a problem here with respect to trying to determine what exactly this family was doing to receive these transactions from China. And I think every American should be concerned about that. This is an issue of national security.
Yeah, let's see where it goes, okay? It's been 5 years, and what do we have for it? 5 years, long time to be investigating.
Of what exactly the Biden family was doing with our adversaries in China.
Okay, we will see where the next chapter leads. James Comer, thank you for your time. It's rather incendiary, and we'll see whether or not you're onto something. Again, 5 years investigating. Nothing just yet.
Followed by the sequel.
To be spent for this. We believe this is a political stunt by Mr. Bragg. We believe the statute of limitations has expired on all of this stuff. Clearly, if there's something that rises to criminal level, then that should be done on the federal level.
He hasn't. I mean, you keep asserting what this investigation is, and we haven't seen an indictment, we haven't seen charges, we haven't seen evidence. What if District Attorney Bragg comes forward with an indictment, with evidence, and proof that Donald Trump did commit these crimes? You still think he shouldn't be charged?
And now for the trifecta. Fox News host Steve Ducci got in on the action.
I know the Republicans said that the smoking gun were these financial records that you were able to subpoena and got your hands on. They'd show that some of the president's relatives were paid more than $10 million from foreign sources between 2015 and 2017. And your party, the Republican investigators, say that that's proof of influence peddling by Hunter and James. But that's just your suggestion. You don't actually have any facts to that point. You've got some circumstantial evidence. And the other thing is, of all those names, the one person who didn't profit is there's no evidence that Joe Biden did anything illegally.
Well, if you look at the laptop and the emails between the president's son and his associates, they went to great lengths to hide Joe's involvement. They even gave him nicknames. They called him the Celtic and the big guy. But make no mistake, Joe Biden was involved. All these countries that the Bidens were receiving money from were countries that Joe Biden was actively visiting in. Many of these countries were receiving foreign aid that Joe Biden volunteered with the Obama administration to be in charge of. We look now at the Biden presidency. Many of the decisions he's made with respect to China, that I would argue put China first and America last, would leave most Americans scratching their head. Why would any president do this? So we know that the complexity of the way the Biden set these shell companies up were made to try to disguise not only the money they were receiving, but also Joe's involvement. So we're at the very beginning stages of this. But in talking with the informant that we have, some of the former Biden associates that nobody's heard from yet, we know that Joe Biden was actively involved, and we're still looking for more bank records that we believe will implicate Joe Biden's active participation in this at the end of the day.
He set up 20 different... It wasn't just Comer who got caught up in the wildly rare Fox News crossfire. Ron Johnson was also pressed on providing concrete evidence to back up their big word.
Events, where is the quid pro quo? What are whistleblowers and more bank documents now showing alleging bribery there and more? What do you say? What do you see?
Well, again, that is a difficult thing to prove. What we are seeing is just mounting evidence. Senator Grassley and I laid out the vast web of financial foreign entanglements of the Bidens in our September 2020 report. The complicit and corrupt media ignored it. They covered up the Hunter Biden laptop to the $4 million that Hunter Biden got out of Burisma out of Ukraine. It's the same fact pattern, the same type of pattern. And let's face it, the bank records aren't going to show bribe in exchange for this foreign policy change. But we know that President Biden lied to America when he said he never discussed Hunter's overseas business deals. We know he lied when he said that Hunter never made money off of China. Hunter made millions of dollars off of China. So we know that Biden has lied repeatedly to the American public on this very issue. These things look sleazy. There's all kinds of conflict of interest. We're going to have to infer an awful lot.
And enter a new way of saying unequivocally, I have nothing. Quote, we'll have to infer a lot. I'm going to try that at the bar this weekend when I'm asked to pay my tab. Do you have money, sir? I don't, but if you infer that I do, then it's all good, right?
But are you going to be able to prove the central thesis that President Biden was directly involved with corruption without getting bank records for either President Biden, James Biden, Hunter Biden, showing the transfer of money or the payments of expenses that President Biden should have picked up himself?
So right now, you could say that we're in the beginning stages of this investigation.
Comer and company have held press conference after screaming match preaching about this bombshell of a case, all to show that they had, well, nothing.
I want the goods. I want the Bidens. I want you to show the goods are a straight line from Hunter Biden's business dealings or any of the other 9 that are listed there where Joe Biden personally enriched himself. And to your point
Okay. So let me say something.
No,
if a foreign national pays Emma, and Emma spends all of that dirty foreign money on cars for my family, on my...
The audience deserves to know that actually your points are easily refutable.
But if you infer...
We're going to have to infer an awful lot.
Hey, Midas Mighty. Love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram, @MidasTouch, to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.
Let me go you, and then the person with the camera. No, I'm joking.
Speaker McCarthy said that he asked you numerous times if there was anywhere in the federal budget for cuts, but he did not give an answer. So is there...
Got a specific answer. Got a specific answer again today. But first, you didn't listen either, so why should I even answer the question? We cut the deficit by $160 billion. Billion, B-I-L-L-I-O-N, dollars on the Medicare deal. We cut the deficit by raising the tax on people making 55 corporations that made $40 billion to 15%, and the list goes on. So,
but in terms of what he is proposing, is there any room for negotiation?
What's he proposing? Did he tell you?
Well,
Did
he talked about...
No, I'm not being facetious. Did he tell you what he's proposing?
He was talking about the bill.
Yeah, what does it propose? Do you know? I'm not being a wise guy. You all are very, very informed people. Do you know what that bill cuts?
There is a long list of things that it cuts.
No, it doesn't say. It says, does it say what it's going to cut? Or just say generically it's going to cut? You get the problem.
Republican bill today, they would cut 30 million veterans' health care visits. The way they do that, that's including nearly 2 million health care visits for veterans in New York State, because there's not enough personnel. There's not enough personnel. The difference between the 2022 budget, which they want to get back to, and the 2023 budget is I increased the funding for the Veterans Administration by $22 billion. And the reason I did it, and probably some of you know these folks, the number of, more veterans are committing suicide than are being killed in battle. And so they pick up the phone and they call the VA in their area. I need help. We'll come in 6 weeks. Come in and whatever. Well, we ended that. We ended that. Now they want to go back to the levels where we cut those folks that now provide that kind of help. This amounts to a $22 billion cut in veterans' health care. Now they dispute this. They, nowhere in their actual proposal are there exclusive protection for veterans. But they say it's unusual language we use with presidents these days. They say I'm lying when I say that. Well, the truth is, why do so many veterans groups, why have they spoken out in opposition to the Republican proposal? They're not all Democrats. They know what's going to happen. Folks, that's a game Republicans are playing. Anytime you single out the impact of their overall cuts, they tell you, no, it's not true. But they're wrong. They want to protect something. They would have written it down and say we're protecting it. You can't cut this program.
Why should Americans put you back in the White House?
Because we did fantastically.
Will you suspend polarizing talk of election fraud during your run for president?
Yeah, unless I see election fraud. That was a rigged election. Crazy Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington were in charge, as you know, of security.
One person who was at the Capitol that day, as you know, was your vice president, Mike Pence, who says that you endangered his life on that day.
I don't think he was in any danger.
Do you feel that you owe him an apology?
No, because he did something wrong. I never met this woman. I never saw this woman. I met her in the front door of Bergdorf Goodman. Her cat was named Vagina. I swear on my children, which I'd never do. I have no idea who this woman. This is a fake story. I said, women let you. I didn't say you grip. I said women let. Drill, baby, drill. I got you the biggest tax cuts in the history of our country.
You think the U.S. should default if the White House does not agree to the spending cuts Republicans are demanding?
You might as well do it now because you'll do it later.
You once said that using the debt ceiling as a negotiating wedge just could not happen. You said that when you were in the Oval Office.
President.
So why is it different now that you're out of office?
Because now I'm not president. I did finish the wall. If I were president, this would have never happened. If I'm president, I will have that war settled in one day, 24 hours.
Why did you take those documents with you when you left the White House?
I had every right to under the Presidential Records Act.
Did you ever show those classified documents to anyone?
Not really. I would have the right to. I did nothing wrong. It was the perfect phone call. Thank you very much, Kevin. Good job. Thank you very much. I like you guys. We love New Hampshire. Thank you. Thank you, Winnie. Good luck, Winnie.
But the American people deserve to know if Biden...
There may exist this smoking gun document, quote-unquote criminal scheme. Hunter Biden's laptop is filled.
I wish I could say that I know it was true or untrue.
Senator Grassley and I both reviewed that disclosure. We find it very credible. We're very concerned.
Many of you have expressed deep anger and disappointment. Many of you are upset that someone who attempted to destroy our democracy was invited to sit on a stage in front of a crowd of Republican voters to answer questions and predictably continued to spew lie after lie after lie. And I get it. It was disturbing. It was disturbing to see and hear that person refer to a black law enforcement officer as a thug, an adjective he used many times to describe black men, and call Caitlin Collins, the moderator, nasty, which is what he calls any woman who stands up to him. It was disturbing to hear him speak so highly of QAnon conspirators and insurrectionists who assaulted police officers in our democracy on January 6th. And it was awful to hear him spread ridiculous lies about the election. And it was certainly disturbing to hear that audience, young and old, our fellow citizens, people who love their kids and go to church, laugh and applaud his lies and his continued defamation of a woman who, according to a jury of his peers, he sexually abused and defamed. As good a job as Caitlin Collins did trying to fact-check him, it is impossible to fact-check fully because he lies so shamelessly. Now, many of you think CNN shouldn't have given him any platform to speak, and I understand the anger about that, giving him the audience, the time, I get that. But this is what I also get. The man you were so disturbed to see and hear from last night, that man is the front runner for the Republican nomination for president. And according to polling, no other Republican is even close. That man you were so upset to hear from last night, he may be president of the United States in less than 2 years. And that audience that upset you, that's a sampling of about half the country. They are your family members, your neighbors, and they are voting. And many said they're voting for him. Now, maybe you haven't been paying attention to him since he left office. Maybe you've been enjoying not hearing from him, thinking it can't happen again. Some investigation is going to stop him. Well, it hasn't so far. So if last night showed anything, it showed it can happen again. It is happening again. He hasn't changed, and he is running hard. You have every right to be outraged today and angry and never watch this network again. But do you think staying in your silo and only listening to people you agree with is going to make that person go away?
A few things here. First, I think Anderson Cooper has been put in the impossible position of having to reconcile both his allegiance to his employer, CNN, and the objective reality that CNN opted to use its air to platform a liar, criminal, and conspiracy theorist. There is nothing he could have said that would satisfy everyone, and Anderson Cooper certainly isn't responsible for CNN CEO Chris Licht putting on a Trump rally. So while my beef certainly isn't with him, I'll still cover what he said. Now, Anderson Cooper starts off by lamenting the fact that Trump was on that stage spewing lie after lie after lie and issuing comments both racist and misogynistic, and Anderson Cooper frames it in such a way that sure, Trump may lie, but he may also become president, and so we have to listen. We have to watch. And to that, I would remind all of you that a big part of why Trump became president is that the media gave him wall-to-wall coverage ahead of 2016. Trump's popularity doesn't happen in a vacuum. It is the consequence of a media ecosystem that rewards his behavior with more coverage. A media ecosystem that apparently has learned nothing. Anderson Cooper also explained how he understood that it was difficult to listen to people applaud Trump's vile comments, and he rationalized it by saying that this is half the country. Now, first of all, the audience was, quote, filled with about 400 voters who are Republicans or Republican-leaning independents. In other words, this wasn't some representative sample of America. It was a Trump rally. CNN filled the audience with a bunch of Trump fans, people who would go on to applaud Trump mocking his own sexual abuse victim. You couldn't have asked for a more predictable response response, and you're kidding yourself if you think that CNN doesn't know that. Also, this is not half of the country. Trump got 74 million votes. That is a fifth of the country. And Republicans have won the popular vote in this country exactly one time this century. I'm sorry, but I am so tired of the media playing dumb and pretending that the 20 to 30% of this country that supports Trump makes up half of Americans. The only reason that talking point persists is because of the both sidesism that's perpetuated by the media. If you watch the coverage of the 2016 election, you would think that America was just old white people in diners. All of which is to say, no, this is not half of the country, and the only reason the media thinks that is because of some self-fulfilling prophecy created by the media themselves. Notice too how Anderson explains that as good a job as the moderator, Caitlin Collins, did on that stage, that there's no way to actually fact-check Trump in real time. And that's the point. If you know that this guy lies with such impunity, and your job is to curb disinformation and spread factual information, then maybe don't platform the guy who you know cannot be fact-checked. Maybe don't platform the guy who you just admitted will lie, and there won't be any way to alert the viewing audience to the fact that what they just heard was a lie. Just, for starters. Of course, with that said, we know why they did it. We know that this was a ratings grab by CNN. Think about it. There is no justifiable reason that a news network would give someone a platform with which they could spread disinformation. Would you let ExxonMobil run a climate conference? This was a naked ratings grab by CNN, and one that CEO Chris Licht actually defended when all was said and done. According to former CNN host Brian Stelter, Licht told CNN staffers, quote, "You do not have to like the former president's answers, but you can't say that we didn't get them." Caitlin pressed him again and again and made news, made a lot of news, and that is our job. While we may all have been uncomfortable hearing people clapping, that was also an important part of the story, because those folks represent a large swath of America, and media screwed up by missing that part of the story in 2015-2016. America was served very well by what we did. I'm sorry, but holy shit, that is dizzyingly off base. Here's the thing. One, it is not a news outlet's job to make news, it's their job to report the news. CNN basically set a building on fire and then congratulated itself on giving everybody something to talk about. Two, yes, the media screwed up by missing that swath of Americans that supported Trump back in 2015-2016, but the media also helped the guy get elected by broadcasting him nonstop, including his empty podium. So if we're really going to pretend that this is about learning lessons from 2016, then maybe we should actually bother learning lessons from 2016. And three, how was America well served by what Trump said? How was platforming a guy lying about the election being stolen serving us well? How was platforming a guy mocking sexual abuse victims serving us well? How was platforming a guy advocating for default and cheering on Russia and attacking CNN's own moderator on stage serving us well? The only ones well served by that town hall were CNN and its advertisers, and it is grossly disingenuous to pretend otherwise. Although I should note that even CNN wasn't that well served when it came to ratings. The event drew 3.3 million viewers, which is far, far beyond what CNN usually averages, but it was still fewer viewers than even Joe Biden got last summer on CNN's town hall, and fewer than several Trump town halls that aired on Fox News in 2016 and 2020. In other words, CNN torched its reputation for pretty middling viewership numbers. And look, Anderson Cooper isn't wrong that Trump may certainly become president again. I don't want anybody to walk away from this thinking that that isn't a possibility, because it is, and a good one at that. But let's not also pretend that the media doesn't play a huge role in why that is such a good possibility. So often the media's coverage is about the Trump spectacle over actual substance. How many news networks covered legislative accomplishments over these last 2 years? How many Americans know what the American Rescue Plan is, or the Inflation Reduction Act, or that Biden signed the first gun safety bill in 30 years into law, or the PACT Act, or the CHIPS Act, or that he created more jobs in 2 years than any other president in American history has ever created even in 4 years, or that we have a near record low unemployment rate right now? I get that the 10-car pileup that is Donald Trump makes for good TV, but the coverage of him is being done at the expense of informing Americans. And given the fact that demagogues like Trump exploit ignorance, they're actually serving him and his interests quite well. Now, I've mentioned this before, but I think it's worth repeating. This is why independent media is so important. So I would very immodestly ask that if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and help grow a progressive media ecosystem whose decisions aren't dictated by a relentless focus on both sides. Because while some networks are focused on ratings, we should reward the ones that are focused on telling the truth.